In this video, we'll walk through the full installation and setup process for MassEffects. By the end of this guide, you should have a fully operational system. Before starting, let's make sure your system meets the minimum hardware requirements. You need at least 2 tactile transducers. One of those will be in a mid-frequency unit. The other should be a mid, a low, or a mid-bass range. There's a list of capable units included in the system manual. You will also need to have a licensed version of SimHub installed. If SimHub is not already installed or you are trying to use the free version, go ahead and install or upgrade that first. You'll find a link to SimHub in the description. You should have already downloaded the MassEffects installer package. If you have not, go ahead and go to the MassEffects.net website, log into your account at the bottom of the page, and you'll find a link to the latest installer. What we want to do is unzip this to a temporary folder, and inside we're going to find the MassEffects manual and the MassEffects installer exe. First, let's go ahead and look at the manual. This is basically a step-by-step guide similar to what we're doing in this video. But if you need any additional reference to a particular step, then this can be a great resource. So let's go ahead and run the installer. If you see a user account control, just click yes to continue. If you own a Stream Deck, the installer will detect it and ask if you want to install the mixer plugin. The installer should automatically find all of the correct folders for you. And again, if you have the Stream Deck plugin selected, you'll get an option to select the size Stream Deck you own. So pick the appropriate one and it'll install a profile. If you receive any prompts to close SimHub or Stream Deck, just click yes to continue on these. And when the installer finishes, just leave both the checkbox enabled and click finish to go ahead and launch the programs, and we'll continue from there. When the Stream Deck opens, you'll get a prompt for the profile the installer added. Just click install here. This is the mixer profile that we'll talk about later. And you can just close Stream Deck for now. In SimHub, pop-up will appear that shows the new MassEffects plugin. We want to make sure that the activate toggle is on, and also that the show and left main menu toggle is selected, and then you can just click OK to continue. Next, we're going to load the MassEffects profile into the Shake It Bass Shaker interface. So click there, and then we're going to go to Profile Manager, and then we're going to click on Import Profile. The installer should have loaded the latest MassEffects SI profile into your Documents SimHub folder. So just click that and click Open. And so now we can delete the default profile if you're not using it. Then you can also select Disable from the auto switching. If you have other titles, like say a flight sim that you are also using a profile with, you can put the last selected. Just remember that if you're in the flight sim and then you load a MassEffects title for the first time, then you're going to want to come in here and select the MassEffects profile, switch it, and then the next time you run it, it'll automatically remember and do the auto switching for you. Next, in the left menu, select the MassEffects page. The first time you run this, you will need to enter your username and password that you set up on the MassEffects site when purchasing your subscription. Next, let's click the link to Discord option and then select Authorize in the browser that opens. Now you'll be able to click the link PC to account. The system will authenticate your subscription, then confirm with yes when asked to request activation. Once the request is logged, you'll be informed that an email will be sent after approval. Note that this process can take anywhere from 5 minutes to 24 hours, so please be patient. Once your PC has been approved, you can just use the sign in button. And at this point, as long as your subscription is active, you will be signed in automatically when reopening SimHub. From the status bar, go ahead and select the mapping assistant. Enter the unit types that you own and the quantities, and then we're going to click next. When the summary appears, keep this window open. We're going to use it later to manually map the effects to your units. Click back into SimHub to just send the mapping assistant to the background for now. Now go back to the Shake It Bass Shaker in the left menu, open the Sound Output tab, then click on Open Windows Sound Settings. In the Windows Sound Settings, select the sound card or sound cards used by your bass shakers and click Configure. Choose the channel count supported by your sound card. So for example, the Sound Blaster X4 uses 8 channels or 7.1. Click Next, and on the following pages, check all the boxes, then click Next and Finish. Still in the Windows sound setting, select the sound card and click Properties. Open the Levels tab, and under Speakers, click Balance. Set every channel slider to 100%. Next, open the Advanced tab. Check both exclusive mode boxes. Leave Enable Audio Enhancements unchecked. If you see a spatial sound tab, select it and set spatial sound to off. If it's not there, you're good to go. Just click OK to continue. Some sound cards apply their own post-processing to incoming audio. This is not desirable here, but it can usually be disabled. So we want to enable direct mode or bypass on your sound card, depending on the device. This may also be called pure source direct or DAC mode. The goal is to not allow the sound card to add its own post-processing. For example, on the Sound Blaster X3 or X4, if you hold the mode button until the orange light appears, this indicates direct mode. Back in SimHub, expand the applicable sound cards and enable custom channel map. By default, SimHub will enable every effect for the first 4 channels, so you can click the clear button to remove those. Also, we want to check the show per effect gain. This allows you to change the percent influence on a per channel basis. Make sure your SimHub volume is below 50%. And click the Test Now to identify which physical units belongs to each channel. And as you test these, go ahead and label them accordingly so you know which shaker is connected where. Then we can bring the SimHub volume back up to 100% and click on the Output Tuning option in the sound card menu. Make sure and check the sound card volume. If digital signal processing or DSP is being managed externally, disable both the high pass and low pass filters here. If you do not have a hardware DSP and all of the units on this particular sound card operate within a similar frequency band, then it's perfectly acceptable just to use the SimHub filters here. Just use the chart in the manual to set these appropriately. Now we can go ahead and click the expand button on the output, and this will create a new pop-up window with the channels. And then let's bring back the mapping assistant that we left earlier. Now we can just copy the channel settings from the mapping to the appropriate channels that we determined earlier when we were doing our tests. Now, the one thing to note is that the mapping assistant does not have any information about the physical location of the units on the rig. What we want to try to do is create a balanced system where we're distributing the different effects across the rig. So in this case, we have the MQB1 in the rear, and we have an I-beam in the rear on the seat, and then we have an I-beam on the pedals. In that case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the engine I-beam as the seat one. Then I have suspension on both the pedal tray and the seat back, and then I have my engine at the seat area. So just a better distribution. We can go ahead and start filling that out now, and it'll just take a second, and then I'll jump back with you. If your amplifier includes a DSP, go ahead and apply the low and high pass filters from the chart in the manual. These you would put into the tool associated with your amplifier. If your amp doesn't include a DSP, you can use the open source tool equalizer APO to apply the same filters in software. We've created a setup guide and we provide pre-built filters that match our hardware recommendations. For setup help, refer to the eAPO DSP guide in the member area on our Discord server. There's a link to this in your manual as well. So now just go ahead and apply those DSP settings, and then the next phase we're going to tune everything with the mixer and gain volumes on our amps. All right, so next we're going to go back to the MassEffects plugin page, and we want to make sure the mixer tab is visible. This is our custom volume controller that allows you to set all of your MassEffects system gains as well as save them off as presets. This avoids having to import, export SimHub Shake It SI profiles for custom variations. Instead, we can do all of this live. You can even do this while on track with either the Stream Deck plugin or the mixer overlay. We'll get into those in just a second. So first, let's go through some basics. We have the ability to mute entire sections or individual channels by clicking the pill controls at the bottom. We can change the volume with the little orb sliders. Next, we have this drop down, which allows you to select different presets that you've saved. And we're going to have a full video later on the mixer and what it can do. But for now, just know that you can make a change, save it as a new preset, or delete existing presets. As mentioned earlier, we can also open the mixer as an overlay. So click this little button and it'll open up as a new transparent window. You can click anywhere in the mixer to move it around. There's a little widget at the bottom corner that allows you to resize it. So next we're going to use the mixer to enable and disable the output channels, making it easier for us to tune our amplifier gain for each one of the units in our configured system. Let's just drop this over on our game and we'll start tuning the system. Before we mess with any MassEffects volume sliders, we want to get our amp in a range that is not clipping and is comfortable to drive. So that's what we're going to do first. You want to load a car in a relatively short track so that you have a quick lap. We want to start by disabling all channels except for either engine or suspension. We'll start with engine mid and also include the engine high, as it has like the peak effect we can use for tuning. If you have someone that can adjust your amp's gain knob while you're driving, that can be helpful during this step. A good early baseline volume for engine mid is to just sit in the pits in idle and adjust to where the idle is comfortable before you get out on track. Now we're going to go drive a lap and then adjust the gain on your amplifier for the units that are assigned to the engine mid channel. What you're looking for here is to not have the gain too high where the unit output is either distorted or is making a pang sound. This can occur if a large frequency shift happens and exceeds the unit's mechanical design, literally allowing the piston to hit the outer casing. This is more likely to happen with suspension and impacts than engine, so we'll get to that later. So ultimately what you're trying to do here is to get to a volume level that you are comfortable with. And this part is fairly subjective. If you want the system to rattle your teeth, you can turn it up to where it's not distorted. If you want it to be more subtle and just an environmental feeling, turn it down. This is the point that you're making it yours. With the engine system, you want to push limits, over rev, sit in the pits, rev, get the feeling for the car. And once you've gotten to a satisfactory place with engine mid, I would suggest turning all the settings back on except for suspension and drive a few laps to make sure the volume's to your liking. If you have any other units assigned, you can do those. Next, if you have any units that the mapping assistant recommended for engine low, disable engine mid and high, enable engine low, and repeat the steps to get those in a comfortable level. And remember to re-enable everything and check consistency with the engine low. So now we want to do the same thing for suspension. So we need to disable everything except one of the suspension channels and drive a lap or two. However, this time we need to perform some more extreme signal producing functions, like driving off track, hitting a wall. These are going to be your impacts. You want to make sure and test those high impact features to make sure that you're not getting those pang hits that I mentioned earlier. If you do, just turn your gain down a notch or two, try it again. Once you've gotten to a point, re-enable everything, drive a couple laps, make sure it's comfortable. Then you can switch to the next suspension system, rinse and repeat. So then once you've finished all of your suspension channels, I would suggest turning everything back on and drive a few laps, hitting those limits and making any final adjustments that you might need to. You should find at this point that you have a nice balanced system. MassEffects has a lot of internal tuning to make the driving experience cohesive between all of the supported titles. So you really don't need to adjust gains per game or car. If you're happy with your setup, you're done. Go drive. However, some of the secondary systems like gear shifts and curbs, you may feel are too strong or too weak. That's perfectly okay. These changes you want to tweak in the mixer control itself. So you're adjusting the sliders for those secondary systems to get it to your perfect mix. And then once you have, you can save it as your own personal preset. Then the next time you start to drive, it should remember the last preset loaded. And if you ever want to get back to the default, you just select the MassEffects default settings preset, and then it'll just reset everything to our baseline. At this point, we're at the completion of this setup guide. Please leave a comment. And if you have any support issues, just post those in our Discord server under the support channel. Thank you very much. Enjoy the drive.